Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, October 26, 2021 edition of the NNPA's Let It Be Known. We start with two important topics we missed yesterday. One, a major congratulations to Jackie Hampton and the Mississippi Link newspaper on their 20th anniversary. Jackie Hampton is a board member and one of the key cogs in the mission called the Black Press of America. And the Mississippi Link continues to bring us the most informative news and information around. Congratulations to Jackie Hampton and the Mississippi Link, 28 strong years. And we can expect at least that much more going forward, and hopefully so much more than that. Also, rap legend Snoop Dogg announced that his mother, Beverly Tate, has died at the age of 70. Recently, Snoop had posted to his social media asking for prayers for his mother. He shared photos of he and family members surrounding her at her hospital bed. Beverly Brodus Tate was 70, and on behalf of Dr. Chavis and the entire NNPA team, including our chair, Karen Carter Richards, we send our condolences to Snoop Dogg and his family. This morning, we are talking politics out of Texas and on Capitol Hill as well, and politics that particularly affects African Americans. And so this morning, we're going to have Houston Forward Times associate editor and columnist, and also he's a Missouri City Councilman, Jeffrey Boney, along with Texas Rep. Ron Reynolds. So we will be bringing them on shortly. But first, of course, the headlines. The anguished pleas of Eric Garner as he struggled in New York City police officers' chokehold in 2014 galvanized millions. And his last words, "I can't breathe," repeated 11 times and captured on video, became a rallying cry for a protest movement demanding that police officers be held accountable. In the 7 years since Garner's death, the deaths of Black men and women in police custody, including some like George Floyd, whose words in their final moments powerfully echoed Mr. Garner's dying pleas, touched off a wave of demands for change. Now, Garner's death will return to public view in what may be the final milestone of the case, as a judiciary inquiry into his death has begun with public testimony from about a dozen witnesses, including the head of the police department's internal affairs unit and several officers involved in the encounter. The process does not directly hold the potential for new discipline or fresh settlements. The officer who choked Eric Garner was not charged criminally, but was eventually fired from the force, and Garner's family reached a settlement with the city of New York. But the hearings will, at least they are aimed at offering greater transparency in a case that many feel has been shrouded in secrecy. And to Garner's relatives, particularly his mother, Gwen Carr, who has spoken out against police brutality since her son's death, the proceedings offers the prospect of some long-sought clarity. Ms. Garner said in a statement that I've been waiting 7 years. I need answers for this. What really happened on that day? There is no justice for Eric because he's dead. For me, there can only be closure. So we will continue to follow that very closely as this hearings unfold. Also in the news this morning, the coronavirus vaccine made by Moderna is safe and produces a powerful immune response in children 6 through 11, the company said in a statement last night. 1 month after immunization was complete, the children in Moderna's trial had antibody levels that were 1.5 times higher than those seen in young adults. Moderna did not release the full data, nor are the results published in a peer-reviewed journal, but the results were announced 1 day before an advisory committee of the Food and Drug Administration is scheduled to review data for Pfizer's vaccine in children 5 through 11. Moderna tested 2 shots of the vaccine given 28 days apart. They tested them in 4,753 children. The children received 50 micrograms of the vaccine, which is half the adult dose in each shot. So the company submitted the study results for the vaccines used for adolescents 12 to 17 in June, but the FDA has not yet announced, I should say, a decision for that age group. Some research indicates that the Moderna vaccine may increase the risk of a rare side effect that causes inflammation of the heart muscle in boys and young men. In July, the FDA asked both Pfizer and Moderna to expand the size of their trials in order to detect less common side effects in children's age 6 through 11. Most of the side effects were mild or moderate. The most common were fatigue, headache, fever, and pain at the injection site. An independent committee will continue to review the vaccine safety in the trial participants for 12 months after the second dose. So we will continue also to watch that as well. Also, in the news, a fundamental tenet of police training in the United States is that officers who fire their weapons in response to a deadly threat should always aim for center mass, generally the chest. That's the biggest target and so the easiest to hit. But a bullet that finds its mark there is likely to kill. A published report has revealed that the chief of police in Deep South town in Georgia, I should say, Louis Dekmar, who has run the LaGrange Police Department for 26 years, he is now training his officers to shoot for the legs, the pelvis, or abdomen, where they think it could stop a deadly threat without killing the source of that threat. Doing so, he believes, could make a difference in the more than 200 fatal police shootings nationwide every year that involve individuals armed with something other than a gun. Dekmer, the chief there, says every time we avoid taking a life, we maintain trust. He says, shoot to incapacitate. And that program has drawn some interest from academics who say it merits further study. But police unions around the country are going against this. They say that this opens a quote unquote Pandora's box, and they are totally against it. But it sounds to me like it's a plan that would eliminate or at least curb the police killings of unarmed people. We've always had this discussion: why shoot to kill all the time? And that's how they are trained. So in LaGrange, Georgia, they want to do it a little different. Right now, let's bring on the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. Dr. Chavis, good morning.
Good morning, Stacey Brown. And on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Karen Carter Richards, our distinguished chair, publisher of the Forward Times in Houston, Texas, and all of the 230 African-American owned newspapers and media companies across America, we're pleased once again to be back on Let It Be Known.
Well, Dr. Chavis, this morning, we have once again the privilege of having Houston Forward Times associate editor, columnist, and Missouri City Council member Jeffrey Boney, along with Representative Ron Reynolds. Good morning to Representative Reynolds and, of course, Jeffrey Boney. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. It's great to be on with you this morning.
Thank you for joining the Black Press of America.
Yeah, all the way from Houston, Texas. First of all, before we get started, guys, before we get into it, we'd be remiss if we didn't let you guys give a Houston cheer to the Astros and Dusty Baker as they open the World Series tonight at Minute Maid Park. Congratulations. And listen, y'all got to talk to Dusty. Dusty's my man. Tell him not to let the rest of the country down. They got to beat the Braves.
Absolutely, man. I'll tell him as soon as we get off.
So listen, first and foremost, critics have slammed new laws that impact mail-in voting, the redistricting plan floated by Republicans, and the attempt to outlaw abortion, all in Texas, while Republican leaders say most Texans support their actions. What do you guys think is the rest of the country's perception of Texas right now?
Jeff, you want to go first? Or you
well, I just want to say, first of all, thanks for having me on again, Stacey. Always a pleasure to see you, Dr. Chavis. And it's truly a pleasure to be on with my friend from Texas Southern University for years, as well as my current state representative, as well as my colleague, State Representative Ron Reynolds out of the great state of Texas. Let me just tell you, there's a lot going on in Texas. People like Ron, who are in the minority in Texas, being a Democrat, have had an uphill battle, battling some of these bills and these now laws that are being implemented in Texas. This past 3 legislative sessions in Texas have yielded some of the most draconian, some of the most intrusive types of legislation, not only in the state of Texas, but across these United States. So the reason that you had people like State Representative Reynolds leave Austin in the state capital to flee to DC and leave the state is to try to prevent these types of things that attack voting, that attack women's right to choose, and various other, to give access to individuals age 21 and older, the right to carry weapons without even having any training or even having a permit or a license to do so. These are some of the things that are taking us backwards in Texas, not taking us or moving us forward.
And I go
ahead, Representative. Dad.
I want to say, first of all, it's an honor to be on with you all this morning. I'm a big fan of this great show and Dr. Chavis for many years, and certainly my colleague Jeff Boney. He set the tone eloquently, and I'm glad he went first so he could really set the tone. But it is shameful that the state of Texas is although a great state, and yes, we're proud of our Astros, but we're ashamed of Governor Abbott and the direction that he's sent in this state under his leadership. He is beholden to the failed policies of Donald Trump, and that is why you're seeing his poll numbers lower than they've ever been since he's been in office. They're 41%, and last time I checked, that's an F. Because he is taking the state in the wrong direction with misplaced priorities. He's focused on catering to a small fringe of the state that the most conservative right-wing element, those who don't believe in science, those who don't believe in vaccines and masks, those who really bought into the conspiracy theories and the big lie of Donald Trump of voter fraud when there was no evidence of it, simply to pass draconian voter suppression laws, the reminiscent of the Jim Crow era. That's why we call it the Jim Crow 2.0. So yes, we're going in the wrong direction when it comes to voting, when it comes to a woman's right to choose. Let us not even talk about the senseless critical race theory nonsense. All of the things that they shouldn't be focused on, they gave every oxygen and all the energy to, but the things they should have been focusing on, like fixing the grid, Medicaid expansion, where we lead the nation in the highest number percentage of uninsured, access to quality health care and affordable wages, lifting the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. So yes, we're going in the wrong direction. They're beholden to the far right wing. And it's going to take the people to rise up, and particularly Black and browns, who are majority in the state, to vote their values and to elect people that care about all people and care about the real issues facing the state and not the fringe right-wing, far-right issues.
Representative Reynolds, you were part of that contingent of Democrats who, as Jeffrey Boney mentioned already, fled to Washington, D.C. During that process in which they were trying to, and ultimately did pass the voter suppression law. When you were when you were in Washington, we know that you got a chance to talk with a lot of Democrats on the Hill. Did you get a chance to speak to any Republicans who may look at things a little bit different than the Republicans in Texas?
Well, Stacey, we would have wanted to. We attempted to speak to Republicans because we knew that unless the Democrats were willing to relinquish the filibuster or make a carve out, that we needed bipartisan support. But unfortunately, no Republicans would meet with us. We tried to meet with Senator Cornyn and Senator Cruz, who are our own U.S. senators, and they don't just represent Republicans, and they represent everybody. They represent all of us. But they were far too busy to carve out a few minutes to meet with us. The closest thing that we met to Republicans was Senator Manchin. We met with him. And I say that, in jest, but sincerely.
We know why you say it.
I'm just going to be real and transparent. Jeffrey knows me well, and I'm going to speak truth to power. It makes no sense that Biden is in the White House Pelosi is the speaker with a Democrat majority in the House, and you have Schumer as the Republican leader in the Senate, and yet and still we can't pass a voter bill to protect the rights that many of our forefathers who showed us we stand on died for. John Lewis must be turning over in his grave to see that all the good trouble that he made during his lifetime and the struggle that the Freedom Riders did. And here we are in 2021 having to convince two Democrats why they should be willing to break the filibuster, because not one single Republican, not one single Republican wants to support voting rights so that people who are black and brown won't be disenfranchised. Now that's shameful. That there's some things should be above politics. Sometimes you got to be a step back and be a statesman. The last time that the Voting Rights Act was reauthorized, it passed 98 to nothing. 98 to nothing. It used to be a novel concept that yes, in America we believe in the freedom to vote. But here we are in 2021 in this new Trump era where Republicans, I mean, quite frankly, they don't give a damn as long as they can stay in power and they know they can win by disenfranchising black and brown folks, then that's fine for them. And that's what they're showing us. They're showing us that.
I think we got lost Representative Reynolds for a moment. Dr. Chavis, I want to throw it over to you.
Well, thank you so much. And certainly we concur with our dear beloved brother Jeff Boney and with Representative Reynolds. When we talk about systemic racism, Stacey, Jeff, and Representative Reynolds, sometimes that term makes it feel like we're not dealing with human beings. But there are human beings that work the system, that maintain the system, that embody the system. So what you see is that white supremacy and those who don't believe in democracy are taking charge. That's what's happening in Texas. That's what's happening in Florida. That's what's happening in Georgia and in other states. And so we have to be very careful. There are elections next week in many states, and then 2022, the midterm elections. That's going to set the stage for 2024. Every eligible black and brown voter has to continue to vote. The reason why you have these voter suppression measures is to make us think our vote either doesn't count, or if we vote, they're going to do something with shenanigans to keep our vote from being properly counted or properly allocated. That's what happened with the census, and now all these measures. But what we have to do when they fight to suppress our vote, we have to fight harder to make sure we empower our vote. And I appreciate that Representative Reynolds, started to call him Reverend, will continue to speak truth to power in this Texas legislature. He made a very important point, Stacey. Blacks and brown make up the majority of the population in Texas. So all the politicians, from the governor, from the U.S. senators, from the U.S. Congress, and state representatives on both sides of the state house ought to be reflective of the majority of the population in Texas. So, that's if that happens, then America changes. This is the reverse of Juneteenth. We got something for them. We have to go to the polls and make sure we express our vote.
Yeah, I see Cheryl Smith is watching from Texas as well. Cheryl, if you want to send in a comment for the representative or Jeffrey Boney. Jeffrey is actually on the verge of being reelected, we believe, in Missouri City next week as the council person. Welcome back, Representative Reynolds. Jeff, you heard Representative Reynolds talk about the governor and with the Trump playbook. How much of this is it Trump? How much is Trump? How much is how the Governor Abbott really is?
Well, let me just say that, first of all, Trump has added fuel to the fire, but this does not start with Trump. This is extreme gerrymandering, and this has been going on for decades. It's been going on for a long time. Keep in mind that we were brought to this country as enslaved people of African descent, not looked at as humans, and not even looked at as American citizens. So, to fight to actually gain citizenship and then turn around to get the right to vote is not something new. So now it doesn't surprise me that they're using gerrymandering to give them when I say give them, I'm talking about the Republicans, an unfair advantage in these elections. And let me just say, it's been a convenient argument. When you look at Senator Joan Huffman, who's a Republican, she was the head of the Senate Redistricting Committee. She's the one who authored the maps. She argued that the maps were drawn blind to race, and that her legal team made sure that they acknowledged the details of the Voting Rights Act that was currently in place. Well, that's a convenient argument, considering that the Voting Rights Act of '65, which had key restriction in it to prevent states like Texas from extreme gerrymandering, was dealt a severe blow in 2013 when the United States Supreme Court struck down key provisions in that law that allowed that did not allow state and county leaders for approving redistricting maps that disenfranchise people of color, particularly Black people. So prior to that, that panel of judges or the United States Justice Department, they could have those maps thrown out. As a matter of fact, I want to say as recent as 2017, here in Texas, you had the federal courts that identified that Texas had violated the Constitution and had key decisions that they made thrown out through the federal courts. And of course, because of the Supreme Court now being a conservative court, they overrule those federal courts. So we have a lot of work to do. We have to understand that voting at all levels is important, not only at the federal level, but at the state level, at the county level, and at the local level. I guess the thing that I find encouraging, or I guess a silver lining in all of this, is that although at the state level, which was extremely disappointing, we had all these key things that happened relative to redistricting and other laws. At the county level, particularly in Harris County, Fort Bend County, it's a majority Democratic controlled, county in those two major counties in Texas. And so they now have the gun. As they say, it ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. So you got a lot of Republicans at the county level and whatnot that are complaining about what they have now seen as maps that favor Democrats. And so, there's that old saying, man, what's the golden rule? It's not do unto others as you've had them do unto you. It's he who has the gold makes the rules. It's important for us to get out to vote, not just register to vote, so that we can now have control and be able to make decisions that benefit people of color.
And Representative Reynolds, what is the prognosis for Texas? As you stated, I see Jeffrey Boney wrote in that Jeffrey Boney, James Wright wrote in that it's a majority minority. I think we lost the representative again, so I'll have to direct this. Oh, you're there. Okay. It's a majority minority population there. Give us a scenario in which the Democrats can retake Texas.
Well, if the large number of Hispanics start to vote, they're likely going to vote Democrat. Texas is a majority minority state. In fact, over the last decade, per the census, 95% of the population increase was due to African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians. That is the new majority in the state. When people start to vote and they vote their values, then they're going to vote Democrat because the Republican policies don't help Black and brown communities. They don't believe in criminal justice reforms. They're okay with the police exercising extreme power over people to their detriment. They don't want to see, they don't believe in climate change. They don't believe in making sure that people have access to quality, affordable health care. So there are so many issues that will resonate with these people. They don't believe in immigration reform and a pathway to citizenship. So I think that once people start to vote their values, African-American women, I'm proud to say, Black women have now been the number one voting bloc demographic for the past two election cycles. And Black women have saved the Democrat Party. Brothers, we have to step up and challenge us to vote at higher levels. But overall, Blacks are voting higher than way higher than Hispanics and Asians proportionally. So once more minorities start to get more engaged in the process and voting, then Texas is going to flip. That is why they're bringing these voter suppression laws. It's not because of voter fraud. It's because they want to put their thumb on the scale. They want to make sure that they suppress the number of black and brown votes. That's why they did the voter ID law. When after Obama won in 2008, they implemented a strict voter ID law, and to put and to put the finishing touches on it to what Jeffrey was talking about. Ever since the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the section before the section was struck out that dealt with pre-clearance. Every time we did redistricting and the census, after the census, Texas has been found liable or guilty from a federal court of intentionally discriminating against minorities, intentionally discriminating. They just did it a couple weeks ago when we finished up the suppression session. They discriminated against black and brown people. The worst part about it, the most egregious part, was they even tried to pair Al Green and Sheila Jackson Lee as you guys. And thank God for the black press that gets our message out there, so that our community gets information without it being watered down. Because there are some salacious things that many of our Anglo counterparts are doing. And if they had that choice, they would take us back to dark days. I hate to say that because I love this country and I love being a state representative. But when you see people, Maya Angelou said, then they show you who they are, believe them the first time. And many of them are showing their true colors with these laws that they're implementing in this state.
Yeah, and real quick, Jeffrey, Boney, I read where Texas has a workforce problem, but I also recognize too that the minimum wage has not moved at all. It's still $7.25. What's your take on that, and what's being done even at the local level? You're obviously a Missouri City Council member, and re-election is next week. What's your take, and what's the solution here?
Well, it's sad that we, and I know this is one of the key issues that State Representative Reynolds has been fighting for, an affordable wage. He mentioned earlier about $15 an hour. I am happy that we have companies like Amazon, who's just built a new facility in my district, and also has now hired over 1,200 people, but they're paying $15 an hour, and they're also providing full benefits, but they're not the norm. $7.25 is the statewide minimum wage in Texas, which is ludicrous when you think about, inflation and the current state of the economy and how everything has increased, because especially now with COVID. And so we have to stop living in the dark ages. We have to understand that in order for people to survive, in order for people to live, they need an affordable wage to do so. Otherwise, you'll find, you want to decrease recidivism. You want to stop people from committing, crimes involving, robberies and things of that nature. A lot of that is attributable to the fact that we don't provide workforce development training. We are taking things out of the various schools, such as career and training type of. I know when I went to high school, I went to metal shop. They had wood shop. They had, cosmetology. They had all of these various career and technical training things, and they removed them and gutted them from many of our high schools across the country. Not everybody's going to go to college. Some people can be an entrepreneur or can learn a skill or a trade. And so there are so many things. It's not just relative to the minimum wage itself, but holistically, there needs to be more resources devoted to ensuring that people have the ability to sustain themselves and make a living for themselves and their families.
Yeah, Dr. Chavis, before we close, again, we want to acknowledge, and I know you want to acknowledge the Mississippi Link and Jackie Hampton's 28th anniversary, as we did at the top of the show. I'll throw it to you for close.
Well, thank you. And certainly we salute and congratulate Jackie Hampton, 28 years of the Mississippi Link, leading voice not only in Mississippi, but throughout the South and throughout the nation, the Mississippi Link. I just want to thank again Representative Reynolds and Jeff Boney for remaining on the front line. And I think that's so important. I'm optimistic, and what is why I'm optimistic? I think people's cups are running over. I don't think black and brown people are going to stand still and allow this voter suppression, allow this human rights suppression to continue. at the county level, at the state level, or at the federal level. Like it's been said on this program, that's what the Black press does. We do report the news, but we also are advocates for freedom, justice, and equality.
And as always, we wish we had more time. I want to say hello to Aisha Muhammad. Aisha Mustafa, who's watching as well from the Muslim Journal. We always appreciate you, Bobby Henry, and all others. We thank you for watching. And let it be known, remember this: when things aren't adding up in your life, well, it's time to start subtracting. We'll see you tomorrow.